Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn. Now on this video, I'm going to show you how I made this blinged out tumbler. I have been wanting to do one of these for at least 2 years. I've watched countless videos and I finally decided to do it myself. This is stunning. So if you're interested in seeing how I did this, keep watching the video. On this video, I'm going to bling out this tumbler. Now this came in a set of 4 from Amazon. With the tumblers, you get the lid. And then with each one, you get this package of 2 straws, a straight one, an angled one, and then this brush that you use to clean your straws. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my decal on my tumbler. After I've done that, I'm going to bling out the bulk of the tumbler in these SS20 rhinestones. And then on top of my decal, I'll put these blue rhinestones. So each step of the way, I'll kind of talk about what I'm using, what I'm doing, and then for most things I'm using, I'll put a link in the description below. If you use my Amazon links, there's no extra cost to you. It helps my channel and I really appreciate it. Now I've already prepped my cup, but I want to show you what I did. I took some 220 grit sandpaper and I just rubbed it all over my cup in small circles, lines, every which way. When you get these cups, like other cups, they're polished. They have a really nice, smooth, pretty surface. You want to rough that up so it'll hold the glue really well. So I've already done it, but let me just show you. You just go in circles. You can go up and down, sideways, just enough so it roughs it up. Now after you've done that, you want to clean it. So I'm going to spray my paper towel with some rubbing alcohol, and then I'll just clean the surface. Once I've cleaned it, then I want to dry it. Now I'm going to work on this silicone mat just because if I get something on it, it'll come off of this mat nicely. I have my decal. Now this is some permanent vinyl that I got at Joann's. What I want to do is just have my decal a color that somewhat matches the rhinestones that'll be on top of it. Now I have my little box around it to help me line it up. So I'm just going to kind of pull that, stretch it out a little bit, and then rub it down. For your decal, I would think you'd really want to use a permanent vinyl, not a removable one. And I'm just going to really press that down. Now when I remove my transfer tape, which is actually just a clear contact paper, I'll take this box up with me. Again, that was just to help me line it up. Okay, so my cup is ready to start blinging. What I want to do is start at the top. To me, it's more important that it look really good at the top than at the bottom. For my glue, I'm going to use this Liquid Fusion, and I have it in a little precision tip bottle that I got off of Amazon. Now I've tested out the Liquid Fusion, the Gem Tack, and the Super Tight. You can get the Super Tight at Hobby Lobby. You can also get it off of Amazon. It is probably my least favorite because when I did my sample test, it had the least amount of holding power. I really like both of these. The Gem Tack goes on white and dries clear. The Liquid Fusion goes on clear and of course dries clear. So I have all 3 of those in little precision tip bottles. Again, I'm going to use the Liquid Fusion today. Now, when I open it and when I close it, or right before I close it, I like to poke a little sewing pin down in there just to clear anything out. To me, it's more important to do that before you close it back up, but I like to do it both times. And then I like to take this little holder off, or the little seal off, and just set it to the side. I don't want it dropping into my glue. Now before I start putting this on my cup, I'm going to squeeze a little bit out just so I get it flowing nicely. Okay, there we go. Then when I lay it aside, I'll probably just lay it on its side instead of all the way up, so I keep some of the glue down toward the tip. Now when you're making your tumblers, you really want the first row to be dry and set before you start adding more rhinestones. As long as they're dry and secure, you can push the rest of your rhinestones against them to get them tight, and you don't have to worry about moving them. If you do the first row and you keep going, you might push your first row out of place. I think it's just a better idea to let that first row dry before you do that. Now I'm going to use this rhinestone tool. You can pick the rhinestones up with this wax tip. Once this starts getting old, you can replace it. The other thing is, mine was flattened out a little bit, so I just kind of warmed it up with my fingers and made it pointed again. Now most of the stones I'll use on this tumbler are these clear SS20s. This is Jolin brand, and I have these little trays to put them in. If you kind of shake them in the trays, I probably put too many in there. If you shake them in the trays, that helps them to be face up the way you need them. But like I said, I think I put a few too many in there. They need more room to move around. There we go. So using my little precision tip bottle, I'm just going to put a thin row of glue on my cup. And I'm not very fast at this yet, so I'm not going to put it very far around to start with. So I'm just going to pick up a rhinestone and set it down in place. Now you can push it down with your wax tip, you can flip it over, move it around with this tip. I mainly just like to keep my wax tip as what I use. So I want these stones to be right up against each other. You have a little bit of time to work with this glue, not a ton, but a little bit of time. I'm really pushing down on the rhinestones so that that glue underneath gets flattened out and makes a good bond. Now here in just a minute, I'm going to move those a little bit so that they're close to even with the top of the cup. And I pushed a little too hard on that one and it made my wax get out of shape. Okay, so my glue's getting a little too tacky, so I'm just going to wipe off what I haven't used yet. Now, I have something flat. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put it up against this flat thing, and then I'll just try to get each of these straight. They don't need to be hard up against this board. You have to have room for your lid to get on. And you really don't want the rhinestones hanging over the top of the cup, because then when you put your lid on, that puts pressure on those rhinestones. So I'm getting them pretty close to the top, but not quite all the way to the top. So there's our start. Now what I like to do is really give them a good look. I feel like there's a couple that were a little too high. Once you have this first row done, you are not going to have to spend this much time doing this. The first row is super important. It's like the cornerstone of a building. If it's not right, then nothing's going to be right. So what I want to do is let those dry just a few minutes. Before they get totally dry though, I'm going to press down on them so that I make sure that they're really pressed down into that glue. Then I'll look once again to make sure they look nice and straight. Okay, and then I'll keep working. So I'm going to go all the way around. I'll probably fast forward through this, but I'll go all the way around. Then I'm going to let this dry for a few hours. That'll allow me to work really so much faster on the rest of the cup. Okay, I'm far enough around that I want to show you. Now that some of my rhinestones are down toward the bottom, I don't want those against my silicone mat. I think it might push them out of place. So I have it built up on this piece of wood. Looks like I'm about halfway done, maybe a little more. Again, this first row, this is the really time-consuming row. It'll get much better. It may look like I'm putting a lot of glue on, but I'm really not. There's barely any coming out when I squeeze on it. I don't want so much glue that it comes up around my rhinestones, because anything that coats your rhinestones on the top or the side, that's going to decrease from the brilliance of them. Looks like I have a little bit of a gap, so I'll move all those over just a little bit. Now my bottle's getting a little bit goopy, so I'll clean that off. And look, I am on the home run stretch, just a few more to go. Now I am amazed at how well these little rhinestone pickers work. I got 2 of these for not very much. Seems like maybe $7.95, $8.95. I hope that's about close to what I paid. I will link to it in the video description. Okay, so now we get to the last one, and you might have just a little bit of gap. So I'm just going to kind of spread that gap out. There's not much of a gap, just a little gap. Okay, so you can see I got pretty close to the lid, but again, there's a little bit of space. When your cup's sitting like this and it's totally blinged out, you're never going to notice that. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll start on the next row. Now I did see a little too much of a gap here. I probably accidentally pushed that when I was putting the lid on. That's where my rhinestones ended. Again, you can't really help having a little bit of a gap, but you just want to space that gap out amongst several stones. All right, doesn't look like much yet, but you just wait. It's been about an hour since I put these on, and they feel very secure. Now, obviously, they're not totally dry, they're not cured yet, but they feel secure enough to move on. So I'll dump a bunch more rhinestones into my tray. Then once again, just like last time, I'm going to put some of this liquid fusion out just on a scrap piece of paper or something, just to make sure it's flowing well. Now on this row, I can put a little more glue down. I didn't want to put a lot on the first row because I didn't want it oozing out this way. I'll put a little bit more down. I still don't have to use a ton, but I will use a little bit more. Now I'm doing the honeycomb method. So what I'm doing is I'm going right between two on the last row. So you see there's one there and one there. I'm pushing this down and I'm pushing it right up against that row. That's why it's important that that row is dry and secure. Now you can see this row is going to go a lot faster. There's really not as much thinking involved in this row. Now there's a couple of more ways you can do this. One is linear. What that means is all the rhinestones are lining up straight. So you have rows going around and then they're straight under each other. Then there's the scatter method where you can mix all different sizes. You don't have any particular pattern. You're literally just kind of randomly setting them around. Now I am a little too OCD for the scatter method. And I really just love the way the honeycomb comes out. Once I run out of glue, I go ahead and push them all up. Try to set them in place really nicely. Look for any gaps and then push down so they really adhere into the glue. Now at this point, I'm going to have to use some what they call filler rhinestones, just smaller rhinestones, because the large SS20s won't fit in there. Before I do that though, I want to go ahead and fill in at least the M of my name. So I have 3 sizes of these blue rhinestones. I have 20s, so SS20s, SS10s, and then I just got these in the mail today, and they're SS6s. I've kind of looked into it, and I think that multiple rows of SS10s are going to work the best. So that's what I'll go with. One other thing I want to show you. So I label mine, or I at least include the label that came with it, in these little containers that I got at Walmart. Now this top package is Beadsland, and the color is Indicolite or Indisolite, not sure how you say that. The bottom one is Zollenbrand, and those are blue zircon. Look how they match. Now over here, I have Beadsland's blue zircon, and they're more green. So different brands, even though they might have the same name, can be slightly different colors. So for now, I'm just going to dump out some of the SS10s. Make sure my glue is flowing. And then I don't want to put too much on here. I want to put one row of SS10s going down the left side of the letter M. So I'll just put a thin bead of glue right along that left side. I'll go ahead and move over a little bit and just continue with some of my clear ones. Now look how beautiful that is. That is gorgeous. Now I'm just going to continue with the same process. I'm going to wait and do my filler beads last. So I'll continue on. Now here's where I am in the project. So I went ahead, I did the honeycomb back and forth. Once in a while I'd start doing a few of the blue letters, and then I went all the way down with the honeycomb to the bottom. And I was really lucky that I ended up being pretty close to the even with the bottom. Just like the top, you don't want these hanging off, because if you do, when you set your cup down, the rhinestones would hit whatever you put it on, and that would cause pressure and would probably pop them off. So when I got to the bottom, I went ahead and went all the way around, and then I started working my way back up. So that's how I approached it. Now you can see I've already put some of the small rhinestones in. Mainly I'm using out of this package for my filler rhinestones. So in this package I have just the clear rhinestones on this side, and then the AB, which stands for Aurora Borealis, and they have kind of an iridescent coating on them. And I'm not using those today, I'm just using the clear. So I just have a little bit more of blue to do right there, and then I'll finish filling in my filler stones. And I just grab whatever size will fit inside the letters. You do kind of use the scatter method, except that it's not quite random. You're trying to figure out what fits there. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, on these really small stones, this little wax pencil is easier to use than my rhinestone picker. This is so big it's hard to see around. So again, I'm just using a wax rhinestone picker. You might actually be able to use a crayon, I'm not sure. If you have any of those sitting around, give it a try and let me know if it works. So I'm going to fill in the rest of this, and then I'll show you my cup at the end. Thanks so much for joining me and sticking it out this long. Until my next video. Bye-bye.